So we give God a praise again. And this time, to the best of my ability, I'm going to try and make sure that that he gets to his material because no, really, I said in my mind this morning, I said we have got, because it's such good stuff that, and we can go wherever God takes us from there. But I kind of want to start there because while you again get everything situated, we'll talk about what we were talking about on Wednesday, because again, and what we were talking about really, because Wednesday's teaching came out of Sabbath's conversation. And as me and him were talking last week, what really happened was y'all were given a window into a conversations that we have all the time. When we call each other, we'll do the pleasantries. We'll do the pleasantries, and we'll say, how you doing, this, that, and the third, how's the family, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, what you got cooking? What's on your mind? Either most of the time I'll be trying to run, I'll be doing my trial sermons through him, and I'll just be like, what you think about this? So I take my little trial sermons to him, and he'll look at it, and he'll talk about it. Sometimes it's just the idea. It's not always about sermons and things about that. They're just ideas, because sometimes, how many of you ever read a scripture and you know that what you're thinking isn't in the text, but you still have the question? And so sometimes it's like, okay, what you have to do as a studier is not create anything in the text that isn't there. Because a lot of, I won't say bad teaching, I'll say horrible teaching is done because someone will interject. It's called eisegesis if you want to be fancy. But they're interjecting idea into the text that isn't there. And we cannot do that. I don't know, for instance, using the event, the occurrence of Abraham, I don't know what was in Abraham's mind that caused him to use this word that had been used before, but this time perform it differently, because shahach, which is what worship translates into, had been used before, but it had been used before dealing with angels. But this time, it had been used two times, chapter 18 and chapter 19 of Genesis, but this time in chapter 22, and he knows what, don't give him that much. But this time in chapter 20,
he already starting, y'all.
But this time in chapter 2, it behaves differently. So if we're going to learn how to live this life as believers, we need to look at the principles and the operation of how things, okay, how does belief actually operate? I don't want to just know the definition. I want to know how it operates. One of the things about this particular word, shahak, especially in the text in Genesis 22, that got my attention was when you look through, in the Greek, they call it tense, voice, and mood. In the Hebrew, they'll call it Hebrew parsing. Okay? It's the same general concept. It'll tell you what the word is. And guess what part of speech worship is? It's a verb. So it means that you have to do something, right? But one of the parts of speech that it is cohortive, which means that when Abraham said this, it was actually an exhortation. So the word itself, watch this, worship in and of itself is an exhortation. I don't know if y'all hearing what I'm saying. Worship, when you say worship in and of itself, it is an exhortation. But it can be an exhortation just for yourself. But when Abraham used it in the text that he used it in, when he used it, he was exhorting not only himself, but also his son. I and the lad go yonder to where we are going to worship. Watch this. I'm not giving you a choice because we're going to. But you're not worried about not having a choice because you've already made a decision to follow whatever Father says. And so when we come into the house of God, we shouldn't be worried about who says what if we've come to worship. Who's made a decision? Matter of fact, we've come to worship. And so that's why we made the point that worship is very influential. Come on, sir. Come on in here. Come on in here. Come on in here.
Y'all, we already had a day during the week. He texted me something on parameters of worship, and this time we wasn't on the phone. This time we was on Messenger on Facebook. And it has to be the longest thread because it just kept going and going and going until we hit something that I never saw before. And when I sent it to him, we both lost it because the word worship is in this text is first mentioned in Genesis 22. Worship is also mentioned in Revelations 22.
Facts.
Go ahead, pull it out. And so when we found this, it blew our minds because he was like,
Look around verse 5.
Yeah. He was talking about the parameters of worship. And so when you have parameters, you have a beginning and an end. You have an alpha and omega. And so worship couldn't be mentioned in Genesis without it being mentioned in Revelation. And so the angel tells them in Revelations, he said, don't worship me, worship God. Don't get it twisted just because you see me and you want to worship me. You're only supposed to worship one thing, and that's worship God. So he going to give y'all the meat and potatoes of that. I said, bro, go on, take it. Do what you need to do. But again, it's because iron sharpens iron. And so you have to find who your Elizabeth is. John jumped because Mary showed up. John wasn't even born yet, but recognized the power that was inside of Mary. The salutation made him leap. Who's saluting you? Because if the wrong person says good morning, it does nothing for you. But when the right person speaks to you, it makes you smile, it makes you react, it makes you do something, because we're now not talking about a soul tie, our spirits are connected.
That's good. That's good.
Soul tie just literally means that we have something in common in our minds. It's our mindset. When our spirits are connected, when my spirit leaps and your spirit is connected, we both gonna leap. How do you think some of us move simultaneously in worship? It's because we worship in spirit and in truth.
Facts.
So one song can touch me different from it touch you, but it touches all of us. I was just at, I literally just left. I was at the Bishop Jake's conference. My pastor was here, he had to do stuff. And they started singing, and I will not be silent. I'll always worship you. But before that, they were singing, I love you, Jesus. I worship and adore you. And what hit that room, my pastor was on his knees in the middle of the aisle. Because worship has a way of causing you to lose you. Your title don't come before your worship. Your worship comes before your title. Because if your title is all you have, your title might not get you in. Because there's people with titles that have no works. There's people without titles that really worship. So our mindset, when we come when we open the door, everything that we experienced prior to getting here does not matter in here. And the problem, Pastor, with a lot of churches, we have to pump people up to get them to a place that they should have did at home. So we're all the ecclesia, we're all the church. So when your church connects to my church, to your church, to your church, to your church, it should be easy. The problem is we not having worship at our church at home. So we only worship when we come here. You've been to my church before, and you go off from the moment you come in. Y'all, when he come to my church, he goes completely off. But he can only do that because that's what's in him. That's not something you turn on just because the music sounds good. I need you to come on in because we're getting ready to go somewhere. If worship only happens when music comes on, then I have to check the authenticity of that worship.
Yes, sir.
Because my worship shouldn't be predicated on music. My worship should be predicated on my relationship. So you can check someone's relationship by seeing how they move in service. If they can only jump when the music is high, and when it's time to worship, they sit down, then I need to talk to you. I don't need to talk to you. You need to talk to him. I worship harder at home than I do in church. Because it ain't based on the audience. When we figure out that we have an audience of one,
Yes, sir.
you only have an audience of one. Because if you get God to respond, if you get Yahweh to respond, heaven's going to respond. We waiting on a response from an audience. I'm waiting on a response from heaven. Because if heaven locks into what you're doing, oh, I need y'all to hear this. If heaven locks into your worship, everything's going to change. And we were talking about this the other day. Our worship is different from what takes place in heaven because we can worship from a different perspective. The angels and the 24 and 20 elders, they can just cry holy. They're limited. That's all they know. You have an unlimited vocabulary to worship him from. So that's why when you start worshiping, he pays attention because it's different from what he's hearing up there. They just saying holy. You're saying you're magnificent. You're saying you're wonderful. You're saying you're my keeper. You're saying you're the lover of my soul. They can't say that. And when you start using different vocabulary, Yahweh reveals a different part of him. Because he's not just one capacity.
Yes.
And based on what you say to him, makes him reveal a different part of him. Call him by a different name. It reveals that side of him. He's a flasher. I'm going to show you something based on what you call me. Call him one of his names right now. He'll show up in that capacity. Rapha, he shows up as Rapha. Shalom, he shows up as Shalom. How do you think you've been doing what you're doing? Shalom has been with you. Jireh, he shows up. And Jireh is just not a name. Jireh is a place.
And that's definitely something that we need to realize is that one of the things that you were saying is that we have a endless vocabulary for worship.
Endless.
And so we have to understand that worship is Abraham's ideal. Worship is Abraham's ideal. God said, sacrifice. Abraham said, I and the lad go yonder. Worship is Abraham's idea. He's the one that says it.
That's really good.
Because God asked for sacrifice. Now, he could have said, I and the lad go yonder to sacrifice and we'll be back. Right? Watch this. And it still would have been true. Because they did sacrifice the ram. Still would have been true. But that's not what he said. He created something that he had done before. Because the first two times that he worshiped, he didn't say it. Did you catch that? So the first time that so the first two times we see the word shahak, again, you're going to see bow in your text. 18 and 19, you're going to see bow. But it said Abraham bowed before them. Same word, but he never said it. But when he says worship, so it quite literally is the first mention.
But it's not the first time.
It's used. It's not the first time it's used, but it's the first time it's mentioned. So he says, I and the lad go yonder to worship. We go yonder to do obeisance. That's how it would be used properly in that text. I and the lad go yonder to do obeisance. So again, how is worship? Worship ought to be activated on the word of God. Whatever the word of God is saying, If the word of God says sacrifice, the result should be worship. Watch this. If the word of God says praise, the result should be worship.
Facts.
Somebody gonna miss that one because again, we've made praise a sound and an action. And it can be. Praise can be, out of our mouths or whatever have you. But let me get to this so I can let you get back to your thing. Is that worship has the capacity to shift landscapes.
That's good.
Because it was arranged on Moriah before it became Jireh. It was arranged on Moriah. See, he shifted because of what God did for him. He said, this place, we're going to call this place. And so we give praise based off of a place.
Talk.
We give praise based off of a place. It's the place where God showed up and said, look, instead of what you thought you had to do, I have something for you. You thought that you had to give up something when I really brought you here to give you something, but you had to be willing to give it up before you got what I had for you. Because we can't trick God. We can't come up and say, God, I'm going to give you everything, but we trying to listen for that realm. I know he around here somewhere. Again, there's no idea of substitution when it's pure. There's no idea of, it's just, God, what you want for this moment. I have every intention. I got the fire, I got the wood, I got the knife. Because I intend to kill my son. He didn't come up there to kill a ram. He came up there to kill his son. And when God saw that, oh no, he real. He about that life. Mm-hmm. And some of us talk about this life,
ready,
but not really about that life. Elder Stokes was saying something about watching the convention, and this was an observation for all my church folk. And he was observing, he's like, I'm saying good morning to folks, and they looking at me like, what are you doing talking to me? And they have this thing on their face, and it's like, okay, well, why are we coming in this mode where, again, the joy of the Lord is supposed to be our strength. We're supposed to know how to get over ourselves and how we feel and what we're going through, and not put on the front, but walk by faith. And so he was seeing that, and he was having difficulty. He said, I see this, and I seen another group. It was Muslims. I seen another group of believers come in, and they were just as pleasant as all get out. That's because I would nearly guarantee, but by the time they got into the room where the worship was supposed to happen, all of a sudden things became holy. All of a sudden things became pleasant. When the thing of it is when God gives you a word. So if you're coming to a conference, you're coming to a church, you're coming to an outside, whatever God has called you to do, your mind ought to be like, whatever God is asking, I'm finna be obedient to that. So let me get my faith straight. Let me get my faith straight and begin to do what God is asking us to do. And so when we understand that it can shift landscapes, when God has given us the word, we say, okay, we love to say this, right? I'm going to a conference on assignment. Right? I'm not just coming to an event, I'm on assignment. Right? I'm not saying that that's not happening. Well, if you're there on assignment, then you ought to know what the assignment entails. Mm-hmm. Right? And perhaps it's because you give me an idea here, because I was in the military for so long, my mind operates differently. When they tell you have to do something in the military, your feelings go out the door. Ow. And so a lot of times I have difficulty in church because I'm like, can I just be real? Your mood don't matter to me. At all. I ain't in the mood. You think Abraham was in the mood? Okay. Let me find a theologian that thinks that Abraham was in the mood. Yes.
I'm going to kill him.
Yes. I am going to kill him. Can't wait. This child that I waited 25 years for, can't wait. Now I'm gonna kill him. He's grown enough to carry the wood himself. Can't wait. Greatest day, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. But I know it did happen. He made up his mind that that's what he was going to do.
You said something about the first mention of the word worship, but then it's really mentioned as bow.
Yes, in the first 2 times, 18 and 19 of Genesis.
So if our worship never causes us to bow, it's not worship.
Say it again.
If our worship never causes us to bow, then it's not worship. Because the law of first mention says you follow how the word is first mentioned.
That's good.
So if we can worship all the time and just be like this, I have to check and see where your heart is. I don't, he does. Because at some point, we should end up like this.
Right.
Bowed.
Right.
And too many times in our churches, everyone wants to be seen. And you can't be, when you bow, it literally means I'm submitted to your authority. See, we look at the word submission bad. Submission is not a bad word. Submission literally means that God can trust you enough to be under the mission.
Come on, teach.
Sub means under mission, which means when I submit, I'm an undergirder.
Right.
We look at it as I'm weak. No, you're really strong, and you're strong enough for me to build an entire mission on. So when I bow, I'm letting him know whatever you need to build today, build it on me.
Yes, yes.
We just don't like the fact that it takes us to a low place. You can't see what I got on when I'm down here. My sneakers don't show. Y'all ain't gonna talk back to me right through here. My gear don't show when I'm down here. You don't see none of my stuff. But what if when we came in, we automatically kneel? If the elders are bowing, why don't we? We're supposed to mimic heaven. But we think everything got to be jumping, so we never do this.
And it's just interesting to me because this is what I said. This is why I wanted you to walk it out, and I'm glad that you did because I agree 100%. Here's the other part to that. The bowing's not the end of it. It's the beginning, but it's not the end. Because this is exactly, nearly verbatim what I said on Wednesday, is many of us are ready to bow, but not many of us are ready to burn. Because it may begin with bowing. I'm with you 100%. I'm not disagreeing. It may begin with bow, but watch this. Abraham, the text said he went yonder to worship. So he may indeed have bowed. We don't know that for certain, but it may have begun with a bow. But we know for certain what happened. He was ready to burn. So we got to be ready to bow, and we got to be ready to burn if we're going to be worship, which is why, again, I can say with all confidence, no fire, no worship. No fire, no worship. Because no fire, what are you going to burn without a fire? And here's the thing. You don't have to bring your own fire because the Father will provide it. You just got to be in position to let him set it.
You got to have your wood.
You got to have your wood, which means that you would have had to have denied yourself. You would have had to have taken on your cross because the Father gives the Son the cross. Or the wood, let me rephrase. The Father gives the Son the wood to carry, which is why worship can be weighty. Which is why, again, when you're in worship, it's actually easy to bow because of the amount of weight that you're under. Go ahead.
I just want to add to what Pastor Simpson said about the physical bowing. But it first got to begin in the spirit. If you don't bow to the spirit that resides inside of you, and as you say, I got to always be first and I got to always be seen, worship can never occur. Because that bowing takes place two places, physically and spiritually. Are you denying yourself so that his spirit can take precedence. And not just when we come in these four walls. That has to happen in every walk of your life. It can't be all about you really at any time. And the reason that I say that and I back that up with the word is because no man knows the day or the hour. So are we willing to take that chance to say, let me do me and let me be seen, and then he cracks that sky and you're caught so far away from him, so far out of his will that he doesn't even recognize you so that you will rise? But that's what we gotta, because the physical bowing could be a show. Let's take it to where it really counts. Am I bowed in my spirit? Am I submitted in my spirit? Because what's on the inside will come on the outside.
So the bowing is the first step to laying.
Because the word literally carries in it, in that definition, bowing and then also prostrate.
Yeah. To lay flat. That literally means to degrade yourself.
You can't be seen.
You're not going to degrade yourself if your heart's messed up.
Come on, Pastor.
That's going to keep you up.
Yes.
So the more we can
I got it.
the more we can get to the place where we can lay flat. You don't see me then. I don't care if you step over me because I ain't paying attention. I don't care if you don't call me because I'm flat. I've degraded myself, not for anyone, but for him. Because this is what he said. He made himself of no reputation. We too busy in a lot of places trying to build a reputation. And so because we're trying to build a reputation, because we're trying to build a name, we can't lay. We can't prostrate ourselves. So the bowing is just me getting ready to totally degrade myself to me and to him. You got to get over you. That's the hard part, is getting over you, is getting over this. Because this will never be saved. This don't like his will. The flesh, the flesh is a mess.
Yeah, it is.
Your flesh is jacked up. And the moment you think you arrived, all you got to do is take a shower. Because as clean as you are, there's still some dirt gonna come off of you. I be mad. Like, I know I'm clean. Where is it coming from? Because your flesh will always remain dirty. So we don't love him with our flesh. It's our spirit that loves him. That's how you can see preachers live like hell. That's how you can see prophets live like hell. They can preach, pray, prophesy, and then go live like anything. It's because it ain't this. It's their spirit. David had a lot of issues. But we still talk about him. He's a man after God's own heart. God said that. David didn't even say that. God said that. God, you gonna say that about this dude with all of these proclivities? They got all of this stuff going on. He's the one. His heart always remained in a posture where it was bowed.
I'm so glad you hit my word because I was waiting on it. And this is what we have to learn. And it's going to tie into what she said. We have to learn the difference between posing and posture.
All right, you did it early today. You did it early. You did it early today.
Here's the crazy part, because posturing is synonymous with posing, but there's a difference between posing and posture. And what happens with posing is only for a limited time.
Talk.
We pose for pictures, and you got to let them get your good side. You got to let them get your good side so that the projection looks like the picture that you want to make. It's all right, she's going to bring me one. Projection. That's all right, we're going to have this conversation anyway. The projection looks like the picture we want to paint, because a lot of times we're not sending ourselves, we're sending out representatives, you know what I mean?
That's good.
And so when we have these, and there are a lot of prophets that are posing. There are a lot of pastors that are posing. There's a lot of pew sitters that are parishioners that are posing. And so I don't want to just put this on Clark. No, we got too many people that are posing as believers, posing as saints, and they're not. They're posing. That's why their face look like it, because they got to wait to get into a certain place so that they can pose.
That's good.
But watch this, behind the scenes, something don't look right. You don't look like your picture. Because we're in the age of filters. Woo. You ain't got to get the surgery, because you can watch this. We got people out here catfishing in the spirit.
Oh my gosh. That's good.
If we ever meet you, we gonna find out that you don't actually look like that.
Wow.
You better keep the front up. But when we talk about being in the posture, posture is a mentality. Posture is an approach, which means that when this is the way that I operate. This is the best way I can describe it. It's a modus operandi. It's the way that you move. Literally, it's not a put on. It's this is my mode. Y'all know me. I'm going to use my hands. If something hit me, I'm going to try and act like I'm going to stay seated and not wiggle, but I'm going to wiggle. I'm going to wiggle. I'm going to, Messiah was messing with me. He said, that ain't me. I was like, yeah, but it's me. Yeah. You do what comes to you, but if you talk to me on the side, I'm going to be doing this. If you talk to me in church, I'm going to be doing this, because there's no put on. And I know we're supposed to put on the whole armor of God, but you're supposed to keep that on and not take it off. And that's what happens is we think that we can say silly things like laying down salvation. Silly things like that. But the point of the matter is we got to learn the difference between posing and posture. Because if we would stop posing and we would have the posture to be prostrate, then the provider could come. Because when I keep saying Moses, but when Abraham decided to have a prostrate mentality, whether he lied flat or not, that was his mentality. He said, watch this, he was willing to give up himself because of his son. We understand culturally, we talked about this last week. When him being willing to give up watch this, God, thank you for this. Thank you for this, Holy Ghost. Watch this. No son, no heritage, no seed, no harvest. Yeah. So he was willing to give up his heritage because of what God said. Yeah. He was willing to give up his harvest because of you got to realize that without the sun and the seed, there are no stars and there is no sand. You got to know your word for you to give God glory right there. I said, you got to know your word to know that one. If you know your word, that one would be like, oh my God, because when he promised him, he said, watch this. He said, your descendants will be like the stars, but there's no sun. Where the stars going to be?
Wow.
He said they'll be like the sand but if there's no sun, there's no
sand.
So watch this. There's no sky and there's no ground. So he was really ready to give up everything. Watch this. Nothing beneath him, nothing above him. He said, that's what you want? You got it. So God literally was asking him for everything. We want to give him the part that is comfortable to us.
Yes, sir.
We want to give him the part, again, that looks good for us. Right? And a lot of people have seen what I and my family have been through in the course of the last few days, let alone the last couple of years. And it's like, well, how do y'all do? Like, okay, first of all, you're mistaking strength for grace.
Wow.
Because you think that this is strength and this is grace. You don't think that my wife has to hold me at night sometimes when I'm crying and I don't want to go through with a, boo-hoo, fetal position, crying, don't want, screaming. Poor Pastor Lenore. Y'all, matter of fact, just pause real quick. Y'all give Pastor Lenore a hand clap. And I'll be just as transparent, just to let you understand that this ain't no put on. God gives a grace to get through a mission. When you're submitted to him, he'll give you the grace to go through it, right? So I'm really piggybacking off what you said. You got to get under the mission. I had a mission to accomplish. So guess what? All my emotions, all my hurt, all of my pain, acute pain. No, I got a mission to take care of. I know what my mother would want. And watch this. Not only what she would want, I know what God wants. And so what God wants is his word to be put forth, which is why I stood in somebody else's church on somebody else's pulpit like she ain't getting no wings. Not a nary wing, ever. Because we ain't angels. We ain't got to say holy, holy, holy. We can say, he's gaining, my boy Pastor Tim Moses put it like this. He said he's gaining his saints back. And so I said he was getting them back. But, so it's like this. It's like the point of the matter is I submitted myself to do what I believe wholeheartedly God had assigned me to do. Not only what God had assigned me to do, and that's the primary thing, but what my family needed me to do. And then watch this, what others expected me to do. Because walking even to the rector is like, oh, we know you're going to give a good word. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. Pastor Postel, if I can't make it through this, my notebook right here, you ain't even got to think. Just walk through this. I asked Apostle Owens, who was there too, if I can't get through this interment, all you got to do is look at my notes or freestyle or whatever you're going to do. But after that, after all that, after shaking hands and kissing hands and hugging faces, I got to go to someplace by myself. Shout out to John for always helping me with this. And scream my lungs out. Because my humanity can't understand what my divinity just did.
It's two different things.
My humanity can't understand it, can't comprehend. And Pastor Postel, which is why I had you give a hand clap of prayer, she had to walk away because she was already in her own pain. But then to see me have to go through my pain and to know the weight of what was not only I had to do but had done, but now I get my opportunity to finally fall apart. You understand what I'm saying? And so people are like, oh, you so strong. No, I am not. No, I am not. No, I'm not. I just operate by grace. I operate by grace.
You operate by grace, but you're not posing.
No, I'm not posing. I'm not
You're not posing.
I'm not posing. It's a posture.
And so here's the thing. Bad posture causes pain.
Watch this. Oh my God. What did you tell me, Jordan, the other day? Was it? No, it might have been Marcel. Marcel, watch this. Woo-hoo. I'm glad that you said that. Oh God, this is so great. Anyway, for me, I hope y'all getting this because this is good for me. Bad posture affects your performance.
It affects everything.
And so if you don't have the right posture, he said when you're playing keys, because that's what he plays. When you're playing keys, if you don't know how to hold your hand, it affects the way you play. Mm-hmm. Watch this. It's not that you didn't have the talent. It's not that you didn't have the gift. It's not that you didn't have the ability. You didn't have the right
posture.
And a lot of times we're wondering why we aren't able to perform the things that God has told us to perform because we're not in the right
posture. And we struggle with that. So even when you think about kids and in life, they talk, sometimes I used to sit. My mom be like, boy, sit up. because she knew that bad posture would affect me later. So we be posing, not realizing our posture is off. And so I've got to make sure that no matter what I'm doing, I'm in the correct posture with him first. We posing for people, but out of posture with him.
Woo! Bars.
So we look good to them, but him, he like, that ain't what I told you to do. Why you doing that? Because they expect you to do that? Because you done posed like that for so long? But your posture towards me is, I done told you to shift and do something different, but you're afraid to do it because the posture ain't going to look right to the people you posing for.
Watch this. Momentary posing can prohibit you from reaching the promise. Ask Moses. Because he had the right posture, but then he started posing for the people. God said, y'all know the text, God said, speak to the rock. But see, last time, he struck the rock. And he was so frustrated with people, he was like, I'll show y'all. I'll show y'all, because hasn't God provided for y'all? Time is, I'll show you. Watch this. And this is why I say this all the time. Just because God decides to move doesn't mean that he's pleased.
Right.
Because the people got the water. Wasn't nobody thirsty that day. Everybody was hydrated. Moses was prohibited. Watch this. The very people you were supposed to push in prohibited you because you were posing for them.
Because his posture changed.
God took him to a peak,
Let him peek in.
but never took him to promise. I've said this and I said it again. I don't want a peak. I want the promise. And a lot of times we want to go to a peak and miss out on the promise. And a lot of times we're taken to a peak and we miss out on the promise because we had a momentary pose. And God didn't ask you to pose. He said, I need your posture. Get your posture right. Which means that, God, I don't feel right. Watch this. When I don't feel like it, my posture is nevertheless. That's what gets my posture right. I'm not going to always feel like it. A whole lot of times. Where in the world, Pastor Simpson, help me, where did we get in the kingdom where we thought that God has to do everything we want him to do?
Because we think he a genie in a bottle.
And that's how we treat him. So we come to church and we rub the lamp and we invite him into his house.
Come on in.
Come on into your house, God. Come on. Come on. We invite you into this place that's your house. Come on. Now, we don't want correction. We don't want correction. We don't even really want counsel. Because if you start giving counsel, correction is going to come. What we really want is your compassion. We really want your blessings. Not even realizing that blessings aren't always things. Matter of fact, again, I dare you to do a search on blessing to see how many times they are things. It might shift your thinking.
It will.
But we want the benefits of the blessor without having him. We just want his benefits. We don't want him. When we ought to realize, what does the scripture say? Blessed are they who have not. So I'm blessed blind.
That's good.
I'm blessed even when I'm blinded by what I haven't seen, right? What it's not that it's not going to happen, but I haven't seen. And we based our blessing off when we see somebody look good. Ooh, look, Pastor, ooh, you blessed. And we start looking at what somebody has. Instead of understanding that, yeah, they may have, because they were bowing. They were ready to burn. They were in the right posture. Some of us have just been posing. Go ahead.
When we were talking about posture, and he said his mom said, sit up, boy. Posture affects your mindset. And when you say your mom said, sit up, boy, my mom used to tell me to stand tall. She never, because I was a tall girl, and I never met girls taller than me until I went to college, she never let that, she didn't say slump down so I could be with everybody else. She said stand tall. Me standing tall affected my mindset to say I can do what I put my hand and my mind to do. Not only that, it also put me in the mindset, even as tall as I was in my younger days, there was no hill that was too high for me. And I didn't care because I liked high heels, I wore high heels. So we have to, if our posture affects our mindset, it also will affect how we worship. It all ties in together.
Come in, Nick. Come in, Nick. Watch this. I got to show y'all. Come on. Yeah, come on. Come on. Come on. So stand up straight. So you can see that I'm a little bit taller than Nick for now. He still got some growing to do. So I'm taller than him right now, but what happens if my posture breaks? When I don't have the right, because there's a posture to bow and then there's a posture to stand. And a lot of times when God is asking you to stand, you got bad posture. No, you're not bowing, you got bad posture.
Oh, that's good.
And so again, it looks like I'm bowing, but this isn't bowing, because if I'm a bow, I need to go ahead and bow. That makes sense. But when we're not in the right posture, we diminish. This is what I'm trying to show. Stand right here real quick and then I'll leave you go. What happens when I'm not standing the right way? I actually diminish myself. And there's a difference between when I diminish myself and when I give myself away.
Yeah, that's good.
And a lot of times, again, we don't know, because we don't know the difference, we aren't shown the difference, we don't realize that we're in a diminished role. And we think that that's submission. You can take a seat.
So now she helped me get to somewhere. Everybody say mindset. Because she said her mother talked to her and told her to stand tall. Your mindset, I'm going to go slow with this, is a set of attitudes, beliefs, and assumptions that influence how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. I'm going to say it again slow. A mindset is a set of attitudes, not attitude. Attitudes, beliefs, and assumptions that influence how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. So my mindset controls how I act. My mindset is what's influencing my posture. My mindset is what's influencing how I move. And my mindset is shaped by my upbringing. My mindset is shaped by my experiences, and my mindset is shaped by my environment. So if I'm going to be who God has called me to be, I got to make sure I'm operating in the right mindset. Because my mindset is going to dictate how I move. I can flow with you easy because there is no covetousness. I'm about to go somewhere. So even if I grew up in a household where jealousy reigned supreme, this environment don't allow me to keep that mindset. Oh. So sometimes you got to shift where you are in order to grab a different mindset. Because I'm carrying old baggage with me into a new place. Don't build me a new house and bring old furniture.
I know for a fact it won't fit.
It won't fit. But the problem is we're bringing our old mindsets, our old attitudes, our old beliefs, and our old assumptions, and they're influencing us when God gives us new doors. So I'm treating new people bad based on how somebody else treated me. I'm bleeding on new people that never stabbed me.
What you said is so powerful because literally, y'all know me, life will preach to you if you let it. And you transported me to a moment in time when I was moving my parents 20 some odd years ago into their new house. Now they had been in their previous house for I don't know how many years they were down there for. They were down there for some time. I don't know what the math is, but they were there for a while. They were there until at least I was 5. So they had been there for a minute. And so they tried to bring. They had been in the other house for about 20 years. About 20 years. So we were moving from that house. I was thinking about Willie Mays, but when they moved out of Meadowwoods, is where we used to live, Bakasimi, in the proximity of you. He lived way out there. But anyway, when we moved from there, they had all their old furniture from the first house, some of the old furniture from the first house, still in the then new house, and then tried to bring that same furniture to the house that they had. The newer house, right? All except for 2 finger rings that were small. Nothing was damaged. 2 figurines, glass figurines. One thing lost an arm, one thing lost a head. Other than that, nothing else was damaged. We took the couch out of the van, out of the moving truck. I'm telling you on everything. Once we set it down where she thought she wanted to go, it literally disintegrated.
Wow.
I mean, it just felt, you would have thought that we slammed it or something. It literally just fell apart, and all you saw was, it didn't disintegrate like that, but literally dust just came. It's a new house where the dust came from. But the dust just literally this thing just snapped in half, and it was like, yeah, that ain't gonna work. But before it fell apart, this is the part that ministered to me. Before it fell apart, I said, Mama, this don't belong here. But because we have, I don't want to say soul ties, but because we get so attached to former things, and we get so attached to old things, when God has literally moved us and allowed us to move into a new space, and we try to bring the same old stuff, and we see it. Now this happened like literally in a couple minutes, but we see it when it gets there and we're like, this don't even fit. Why did I even bring it? So I made all the effort to move it, to make sure nothing happened to it, to load it on the truck, to bring it across. And we move stuff by pods. So we had going into a pod, into a store, took the pod back out, brought the pod to the property, brought it back out the pod, and walked it into there. Had went through all this just for it to fall apart. God was like, in that moment, the ministry that happened to me was this: it should have never left the old house. You should have put it out there on the curb. So watch this. A lot of times when we're trying to move former things into fresh places, God is saying, kick it to the curb. Nope. I said, when God is telling, he said, look, I need you to leave the former things out of the fresh place. And we want to bring baggage and wounds to new situations. And it's not helping anyone. It's not helping ourselves. Watch this. You're not going to even be able to sit there. The same thing that held I feel it. The same thing that held you up for years can't hold you anymore. I said the same thing that was holding you up for years. And I'm not talking about holding you back. I said holding you up. Same things holding you up for years ain't going to work in this season. And God's saying, kick it to, I know it served You well, but served is past tense. And I'm trying to bring you into a present presence.
While you was just talking, he said, son, even if it fit, it don't match.
Woo!
He said, even if it fits, it no longer matches because you've been upgraded. And you trying to bring that into this, but it no longer matches who I've called you to be. And so many times we like stuff to fit. Oh, I used to do this. This is what I've always done. I'm coming down your row. This is how I've always been.
Come talking here now. I hope you listening. I hope you listening. So good.
And so because it's always fit, we think it's matching. And now it don't match because he's changed you. And you've been changed but don't want to accept it because we use what fits as a defense mechanism. Can you just say, that don't fit no more?
That don't fit no more.
It's crazy, Pastor, how we get so comfortable with being comfortable. I had a pair of sweatpants that I outgrew, but they were my favorite sweats. Don't act like y'all don't got that piece of clothes that you know that this really needs to go in the garbage. They had paint all over them. They had a rip in them, but they were so comfortable that I didn't want to get rid of them. The drawstring was gone. I had to start rolling them to keep them on.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. But because of my comfort level, I didn't want to change. He said, that don't fit no more. And even if it fit, it don't match where I have you at. And the problem is because it fits, we think it match. You got some sneakers at the house, I'm sure you do, because I'm looking at the ones you got on now, that fit, but they don't match what you have on today. So it might fit something else, it might match something else, but it don't match today because we're always growing. So we can't get so comfortable with fitting in.
So we got to coordinate.
Come on.
According to the call.
Yeah. And you coordinate differently every day. Because I might need you to talk today, and tomorrow I might need you to pray. I don't need you to get comfortable. I need you to be in the vein where I have you for the moment.
Can we stop right there and give God a praise? Because and the reason I said that is because we're literally in that moment.
Right now.
We're in that moment. Right now, because it's easy to get up and do the same thing Sabbath after Sabbath after Sabbath after Sabbath, and oh, I know it's gonna be a good word, but what God was like, you know what? What if we just could show in this setting, literally two different churches, if you would, two different individuals, two different anointings with no competition.
But
again, he has came here on my request to do his stuff. He's like, I ain't interested in that if that ain't where God is. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. He got a whole thing. And he's like, you already there. We just gonna go there until there's different. And so I just wonder, again, not that we are the only ones doing it. I don't want to paint that picture, but I'm just saying I just wonder what would happen if we had more churches, more people of God. Because I know some people got issue with churches or whatever. But more people of God, if you was a people of God, you wouldn't have an individual, you wouldn't have a problem with the church, but that's a whole nother conversation. But if we could just get out of, okay, I think this is supposed to happen, or this is what happens, and we think the shift happens when, again, the music hits, or the shift happens when we go from this to this. What if God was like, I don't even want to do praise and worship this week, what y'all call praise and worship. What if I don't want to do that? And what, like, I thought I was crazy, Pastor Tim, but me and you were in saying similar things, like, you know, will I sometimes open up with a song? I know I can't sing. And I know a bunch of praise and worship. I know I can't. Don't say I can, because I can't.
But wait, I need to tell you.
Go ahead.
He said 2 different churches, but the same bloodline.
Right, same bloodline. Yeesh. This is what I was saying, though. It's like we get so worried about, and I know some people may take something with this, offense or whatever to it, but hear the heart of what I'm saying. Because I don't believe in just doing something because you want to do something. With that being said, I don't believe in doing something just because you can do something. I believe in doing what God calls for. Because watch this, while we have different leaders able to hit certain notes, and I'm not talking about singing and hooping, right? There are certain people that just have, like Pastor Simpson is wonderful. He has a voice that, again, for some people it's just like, okay, I'm going to pay attention just because of your natural voice. You understand what I'm saying? But when we can get over all of that, it doesn't have to be this particular thing that sounds good to us, whether it be the sound of a voice, singing or speaking or otherwise. We can get past all that and just be like, what is God saying right now? Because God might have someone who, quote unquote, will never hit a billboard. And can I be ruthless right now? They won't even be locally famous.
That's real good.
Because a lot of times that's what it is. We think folks get locally famous, and your local fame is like 10 churches deep. You go outside them 10 churches, don't nobody know you. I'm talking about my own self. There's probably about 5 to 7 churches that really know who I am. I could walk into one of these other churches, and nobody would know. They might sense the anointing on but they wouldn't know who I am. So what if we got behind all that and be like, God is just looking. He's really wanting sincerity. Worship me in spirit and truth. Worship me in sincerity. Joshua says we're going to serve him in sincerity and in truth. And so if we're going to serve him in sincerity and truth and realize that that's what he's looking for. Yes, we want the premium sound. Yes, we want the premium production. But God is like, that's what y'all want. That's what y'all want. I want sincerity. I want what I asked for. What if I said, stop the music? What if I said, because me and you were in a similar place, like, okay, if this ain't working for the house, why are you doing it?
Why are we doing it?
Because we've seen everybody else do it. And watch this, we think it's working for them. I'm here to tell you, you have conversation behind closed doors, they'll let you know that they just as frustrated. And there's a lot of frustrated believers that are going through the motions. We're posing.
Because it fit.
But it don't match.
But it don't match.
It don't match.
And the way you can tell it don't match.
We in trouble.
We in big trouble. He tells us, he says, remember ye not the former things. Basically, I need you to have a case of amnesia. That's how powerful this is. Remember ye not the former things, and I'm going to go a step further, neither consider the things of old. I don't want you to remember, nor do I want you to consider it. That is over. Block it out your mind. Remove it totally from your mind. Disregard it as if it never happened. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, surprise. Look for it. I'm going to do a new thing. Now, he does not say new and improved. He just says new, meaning brand new, something fresh. Because a lot of times products say new and improved, and they only change the outside packaging and nothing is changed on the inside. So I get you to pay more because I changed the label, but I didn't change the heart. Behold, I will do a new thing now. You just said we're sitting in a now moment. Now, right now, and now is perpetual. Now is always now, because when I said now before, that was no longer now, but now is now. Right. Like now is now.
I love it. You talking about language.
Because that last now is now later, because we're in the new now. So we're always in the now. So you'll never run out of new things happening because we live in now. Now, it shall, not maybe, spring forth, not backwards. I'm telling you the direction you're headed in. You're going forward. But you can't get forward if you're remembering the things of old because it fits. So we're stuck in fits and not match. So we having fits.
I love it. Bars, that's a bar. That's a bar. I love it.
Because it no longer matches. This is not what's normal. So some people will say, we're not having church. But this is the dialogue that Yeshua was having when he sat in the temple. So because there's not a podium up, it will be hard for some people to receive. When the reality is if I'm getting better from this, then this is the match. But I'm having fits because it don't look like what I'm accustomed to. He says, don't consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Did you not know it? Yes, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. But I move differently on different days. I spoke, go ahead.
And I'm not changing. I'm changing you.
Talk here, sir.
God is not changing. He's trying to change us. Don't conform to the things of this world, but be ye
by the renewing.
I'm trying to make your mind new again. And so when I show you a new thing, I've shown you a new thing before. Mm-hmm. But now, right now, I'm showing you a new thing. Won't you know it? Won't you come into the knowledge of what I'm trying to do with you now? I know this has always worked for you before. I know this is what you've learned to do before. But now, in order for you to learn where I want you, you have to unlearn what you were taught.
That's real good.
Like you said, it's selective in need. I have to stop thinking about what it used to be.
Yes, sir.
If I want to go to where he's taking me. Because what happens is a lot of times we're stuck instead of being in progress, simply not because God hasn't opened doors, and not even because we haven't walked through them, but we stopped at the threshold. Because the further I get into that room, the harder it is for me to see where I came from.
That's real good.
When I leave this area right here, I know this area real well, can operate in and all that good stuff. Once I cross that threshold, and remember, when God's opening new doors, you're not familiar with what's in the next room, what's in the next space, what's in the next dimension, what's in the next dispensation. And what happens is, the first thing that we'll do when we're in a new space is we try and get bearing based off where we've been.
Walk it out.
So I'm trying to get bearing based on what I've been, which causes me to look back. And God is saying, I'm trying to give you a new beginning. So you can't get your bearing based off of looking back. You got to get your bearing off of where I'm beginning. Which means that now you're going to have to watch your step.
My God.
Now you're going to have to, why are you going to have to watch this? Go ahead.
And the reason why you got to watch your step is because the next thing he says, I'll make a way in the wilderness. Yes. This road ain't
Y'all
even...
know we're in the text right now, right? Okay, I'm going
to make a way in the wilderness, which literally means I'm creating a road and a path for you that don't even exist yet. Every time you step, I create another way. I'm creating a way in the wilderness. Prove it, Simpson. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So every time you take that step, I'm ordering the next part of the way.
I'm going to be a lamp to your feet and a light
unto
into
your path. I'm going to make a way in the wilderness where there wasn't one. I'm creating this for you off of your obedience to stop worrying about if it fits, but now you want to be where the match is. I'm going to make a way in the wilderness. Watch this, and I'm leaving. I'm going to give you rivers.
That's what I was waiting on.
In the desert. I'm going to make water shows up where there is no water. I'm not just causing a little bit. I'm going to make rivers show up where there shouldn't be one. It's dry, but it's going to be wet if you talk. Because out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. So even if you're in the desert, you have the capacity to cause it to turn into a river. Because the river is in you. So even when I'm in the dry season of my life, if I say the right stuff, it can't remain dry. I got a river on the inside of me. And it's going to sound crazy, but just go with me. No matter how eloquent you speak and how eloquent your speech is, at some point, spittle will come out. Which means that's the beginning of the river. We should never be dry. Nothing connected to us should never not grow. Not when there's rivers on the inside of me. Like you're in the time of your life where it has to produce. I need y'all to make this declaration. Say, everything I touch. Everything I touch. I need you to say it strong. Say, everything I touch. Everything I touch. It has to produce. It has to produce. It has to. If ways could be made in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, and I'm made in his image and in his likeness, I have the same capacity to cause things to produce. The problem is I like fitting in. I don't like speaking against the grain. I like speaking what I see. So I'm saying what I see instead of saying what he said. It's easy to say what you see. And seeing is not believing. Seeing is deceiving. We've been taught seeing is believing. Seeing is deceiving. Prove it, Simpson. We walk by faith, not by sight. So what I see will deceive me. So I can't go by what I see. I got to go by what he said. And how do I know what he said? I just got to open up the book. You don't have to prophesy to me ever again. I got 66 books of it. My healing is already in there. Everything I need is already in there. Yeshua is the only person that has a will that got up and the will is still intact.
Yes, sir.
We don't be present for the reading of the will, though. So because we're not present for the reading of the will, we don't know what's in the will. And when we read the will, we read it silently. Your faith is never charged when you read the Bible quiet. Prove it, Simpson. Faith cometh by hearing.
Hearing.
And hearing by the word. So the enemy don't care when you read your Bible silent. Your faith ain't increasing. You ain't heard nothing. So because you ain't hear it, you ain't get no increase. So you still at the same faith level. The church has taught us wrong. We run around bragging saying we got a lot of faith. You're never supposed to have a lot. You're supposed to release a lot. So we running around the church, oh, I got faith, I got faith. Where did you release it for? The woman with the issue of blood got healed because she had faith. Her faith caused her to touch not his humanity, but his divinity.
That's right.
Because other people was touching him. They touched his outside. She touched his inside. So we have to start challenging people to release their faith and take ourselves out of God mode. Pastors sit in God mode too much. I know I done went off right now. I'm sorry. We sit in God mode. People call us when they have a problem instead of calling him. So what we do is we come through and their faith never grows. And then what happens is we become little G's to them. Pastor got me. Let me call Pastor. I know I could call Pastor. Pastor always look out for me. What if God's trying to stretch their faith? And what if we're interrupting that lesson?
So I love where you're going, and I'm with you wholeheartedly. The way my mind naturally works is, so how do we balance that? How do we balance that? Because there is a time when God is calling us, right? And God is calling us, and he's saying, hey, I need you to go get it. Mm-hmm. I need you to go get it. So for that person that's sitting in that seat, like, hey, I realize that I need to go get it. I cannot be relying upon pastor or said leader. I'm in that seat. So how do I balance between when I need them and when I don't?
Okay, you balance that by we have to teach them. If I've been in this seat for a long time. Mm-hmm. So can I talk about me? I've enabled people by always being that person. Because I've been out of balance. Because I've had a problem with boundaries. This is about to get real good. We think it's a compliment, Pastor, when people said to me, call Pastor Tim, he'll give you his last. That's not a compliment. I have an issue with boundaries. Because if I give you my last, that means there's nothing left for me. Oh, it's a whole different perspective. People say, call Pastor Joe. He'll give you the shirt off of his back. If you give them the shirt off your back, you're now left naked. We've messed up. I can't say you. I'm going to say me.
I messed up.
I'm going to say me. I've messed up because I went in God mode. I got to save them. What they going to do if I don't do it? When I should have broke open the book. Like he said in his word, my God shall supply all my need. It ain't an S on that. It's one. All my need according to his riches in glory. That glory literally means praise and worship. I got to teach the people how to get it instead of always getting it for them. There's some people we're called to absolutely help. But at some point, I got to teach you how to fish. Because if I don't teach you how to fish, I'm always going to be feeding you. The object of discipleship is multiplication. We stopped doing disciples and started having members. I can come to a club and never do nothing when I got a membership. I could sit there and cross my legs. I'm a member. I'm not a partner. I'm not a disciple. So my membership entitles me to sit here and expect something.
Entertain me.
Entertain me. Make me feel good because I don't feel like doing it. You do it for me. Can you bring me something? We stop having disciples in our churches, which has caused for people to have an attitude and say, I don't like how my membership feels here. So because I don't like what my membership feels like here, I'm going to go down the street and see what they club feel like. I've messed up by giving too much. I've given when he told me not to. You just want to keep it real now. If we're going to pull it all off, let's go. I've given when he told me not to. Because I said, God, if I don't do it, who gonna do it? They said they ain't got no more time. And you didn't do it, so. Ooh, I stepped off in something. You didn't do it, so I'm their last resort. So I'm going to step into your place, God. And they know they can call me, so they don't really need to use their faith. They don't even really need to budget.
You're getting heavy, Doc.
Because they can call me because it looked like Pastor got it. So I'm going to spend my money on what I want to spend it on. And then I'll spend his money on what I need to spend it on. There are people that we are assigned to help. But then there are people we are designed to push.
So sometimes we haven't been pastors. We've been pacifiers.
All right. I knew it was coming at some point. I knew it was coming.
Stop it.
It was good again this week, y'all. But I knew it was coming.
Remain seated, sir. But no, because I'm just thinking, like, if we become pacifiers, we've not allowed them to grow, because a lot of times because we have such a heart for people. You know, pastors, genuine pastors have a heart for people. We have a heart for them, so we want to help them, but sometimes we're hindering them simply because we like, okay, that's a God thing at this point in time. If I've taught you, and what came to mind in the way that I was trying to present the question was this, is that the disciples, particularly Peter, was a fisherman by trade. So it's not that he didn't know how to fish, but he still had to listen to God in instances where he couldn't catch anything.
That's good.
And so this is why I was talking about the parishioners, the members, or people that come to the church. It's like, okay, well, where's the balance at? Because you're saying, okay, I got to get it by myself, right? Or I need to. That is true. The other side of that is, what happens when I can't? It's not that God won't or can't and that I got to go in the boat. I sometimes need somebody to help show me, put your net over here. It's not that you don't know how to fish. You came in here knowing how to fish. But let me show you how to fish in a different way, in a different dynamic. And the other example that came to my mind was this, is when they were out fishing again. This is after Jesus rose. They were out fishing again. And he says, hey, this time, go do it this way. And they caught the fish, and this time Peter, who, jumps out, the water goes running on the shore. And it was interesting to me that they had caught fish, but Jesus already had fish. They had caught fish.
He was cooking fish.
He was cooking it. And so that's how I look at church. At some point, we ought to be able to go fishing together. And so I know early on, I'm going to teach you how to fish. Rod going to be in my hand. I'm going to pull it. I'm going to reel it in. I'm going to scale it. I'm going to gut it. I'm going to cook it. And I'm going to serve it. But at some point, you got to get the net in your own hand. At some point, you got to learn how to fish for yourself. And when you're not catching anything, after learning how to fish, after knowing how to fish, that's when you say, hey, I'm not catching nothing. I'm out here doing what I know how to do. I'm out here doing what you've shown me to do before, but it's not working this time. Okay, well now, do this. Because what I think sometimes where we leave unintentionally. We leave loopholes. And when we teach people that you got to get it for yourself, all of a sudden, we think we don't need anybody, right? I'm not even going to talk about the parishioners. I'll talk about pastors. Because something that he said here that was powerful, y'all know I lean on him for a lot of things, right? And I have a covering, right? But what did he say? I was with my pastor. Somebody missed it. He is a pastor that has a pastor. I am a pastor that has an apostle. You understand what I'm saying? And not only do I have an apostle, but I also have an apostle big brother. He don't like to let that out every now and again, but I have a big brother that does that, and I'm like, hey, big bro, I know how to fish. That's not being braggadocious. It's a fact. I know how to fish. I know how to catch a bunch of fish. I'm good at it. But I'm not catching nothing today. So watch this. I still need somebody to help me because I've been working this side all night, and it ain't working. I'm a fisher. I like how the Bible put it. I'm a fisher. I was raised to fish. I know how to fish. You taught me how to fish. I'm not catching nothing today.
I think the biggest thing, though, Pastor, is Jesus didn't fish for them.
Right.
I did.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I want to get I want to close all the loopholes. Do it, get it.
That was the problem. I taught people things, and then when they didn't listen to the instructions, I still did it. Which in turn puts me in a bad position because now I'm overextending myself and my grace because you didn't follow instructions.
So we were sent to give instruction, but we want to give instruction, put it together, and then serve them with it.
And that's wrong.
And you 2 steps too far.
Yeshua didn't fish for them.
He did not.
He just gave instructions. He said, hey, you fished all night. Now I'm going to tell you to do something that goes against what you're used to fitting in to do.
I knew you was going to bring it back. You're so good.
But this is going to match. Cast your net on the other side. Go out a little deeper. You're comfortable here. Go a little deeper. Cast your net again. Now, and the reason why I need you to cast your net again, and I'm not a fisherman, but I know something. Cast your net again.
How is it that a carpenter is telling fishermen how to fish? You can't tell me what to do because you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know how to do what I'm doing. I could tell you how to catch more than you've ever caught. And I've never done what you're doing.
What you're doing. So he tells them to go a little further. He says, launch out into the deep. This don't fit, but it match. Go a little deeper and cast your net. Cast his net and brings in so much fish that now if you go back and read the text, it's one of my favorite texts. He says they were washing their nets, but he only cast a net.
And why are you washing what you're going to throw in the water?
That's going to smell again. I'll tell you. Because the washing just don't mean washing. It means stretching.
Yes, sir.
I want you to stretch your tools.
These are alley-oops, ladies and gentlemen.
So sometimes God will cause you to stretch what you've been using because he wants you to know your capacity has increased.
But you can only stretch it after you've cleaned it.
You can only stretch it after it's been cleaned.
In other words, you got rid of the former things.
Y'all in another conversation, y'all might as well pull up. He tells them to go deeper. Cast your net. They cast it. I think it was somebody that looked like us that wrote this text because it says they caught so many fishes.
Yes.
F-I-S-H-E-S, fishes. I never saw that before. They caught so many fishes that their net began to break. Break so much to the point that he had to call other people to come help, and their boats began to sink. What if your obedience is not just for you? What if I'm trying to teach you something that's not just going to affect you, but cause overflow to hit your people? And sometimes we get so comfortable that we don't want to go deeper. And we stay right here. And the results that he had for us, we don't see because we want to stay close to the shore. I know he's shifting me.
Does that mean because they went deeper and they had so much that they couldn't catch it all, in order for the other boats to reap the overflow, they also had to go deeper?
Everybody did.
So everybody got overflow because somebody was obedient.
Right.
But everybody had to go deeper.
Everybody had to go deeper, but he didn't fish for them.
And that's crazy.
I messed up because I fished for them.
Yeah.
So that's where I messed up in my years. I fished for them, cooked the fish, cleaned the fish, caught the fish, did all of the stuff because I wanted to be a great pastor. But I became a great enabler. So it's balancing this teaching, giving the instructions, and then letting them run with the instructions. If it don't work, come back. We'll revisit it. But the beauty of that whole story is Peter had to catch enough fish that he could retire. He left his family for 3.5 years, which means that amount of fish was enough that he didn't have to fish no more. You got to look at it. He never went back to fish.
Until after. Right.
Or when he had to go get the money for Caesar. Render unto Caesar what Caesar. He never had to fish again. One act of obedience can change your whole life and shift you to places where you never thought you'd been. And I think for pastors like us, we have to keep our ear to his mouth. Because he can say shift. And if we're afraid to shift, we'll stay at the coast and miss what he's really trying to get us to grab. I'm in that season of my life right now. I know it's happening. And I'm battling. It's a conversation me and you going to have this week. I'm literally in that battle right now. Because you called me to come here last week. I came. After you called me, Apostle Owens called me. I went and did something for him on Monday. It went so good on Monday, he said, come back Tuesday. I'm back here with you today. I know he shifted me, but I'm comfortable. This ain't nobody else's story now. I'm talking about me. I'm so comfortable doing what I do on Sundays that I know he shifted me that I'm like, you sure? Because I have lived off of catching this amount of fish. But now you telling me to switch? Why you keep having me sit on platforms like this? What are you saying to me? What is this new thing you trying to do with me that in my flesh I'm scared? Because you telling me to go deeper. I'm talking about me, y'all. I'm talking about, see, the word comes to you first.
Facts.
So I'm living in these moments. He was the first one to call me. I had been having conversations with myself and the Lord. And so last week when I sat here, I sat in purpose. His act of obedience of launching out into the deep caused me to come out into the deep. But I'm afraid to go real deep because I don't know what's out there. So it get kind of scary because you don't have all of the details. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but I still don't know what's out there. So it makes me nervous. But when you called and then the apostle called, and then he said, come back, and then I'm back here. I said, okay. You sure? Like when I say I'm tiptoeing, y'all, I'm tiptoeing because I've been doing the same thing for 21 years. How do you just stop and do something else? Behold, I will do a new thing. But you like, oh, I'm not the only one in here that's struggling. So I said, Lord, I know you've been like, the Lord literally has been dealing with me. Son, you've had great success in ministry. You've seen thousands of people give their lives to the Lord. Your church in New Jersey had 250, 300 members. You came to Kissimmee, your church exploded. You've had great success in ministry. Now start helping churches. You sure? I'm telling y'all what I'm fighting right now. You sure you want me to do that? You don't? Okay, let's have a couple more conversations about this. Because how do I transition out of what I've been doing for so long? Here's the thing, Pastor, and it blows my mind, and you got the mic and I'm leaving. This is what he tells Peter. God, you're no longer a fisher, but now I'm going to make you a fisher of men. I'm not changing your occupation. I'm just changing what you catch. He's saying to me now, I'm not changing your occupation. I'm just changing how you deliver it. But do you trust me, Simpson, enough to do this? And I want to say, yay, Lord, but my flesh is still nervous.
Give God a hand clap of praise right there. Get ready to get your offering together. I know that's a real interesting place to kind of pause, but here's one of those things that I like to do. I like to pause sometimes when the questions aren't answered. I'm nervous. So what do? Our first response, follow the will of God. Like you did it that easy. Like you did it in that moment. Like you haven't danced between what God has called you to do and what you've done. Some of us have been dancing for quite a while. Some of us have been going back and forth for quite a while, but God is still calling us to do it. And there's a window. There's a window to do it. Going back to the baseline, and we're getting ready to go. When God called Abraham to do what Abraham had to do, when Abraham got up, the next morning, it took Yeshua going back into prayer, coming back out to go and do what God had asked him to do. But there's a window in which God is saying, I want what I asked for. And that's what we have to be mindful of to catch the window. That makes sense? Because God will give you a window. I can show you several instances. Those are two that we know, right? He said, go sacrifice your son in a place I'm going to show you. He got up the next morning. I don't know whether he prayed. I don't know what he did. But by the time the morning came, he had made up his mind. On that second time, because Yeshua went to pray, came out of prayer, caught him sleeping, went right back into prayer. When he came out that second time, he actually followed through on what the Father had asked of him. Does that make sense? So right now, I feel that we're in this window. I believe we're in this window where God is saying, okay, I'm calling you out of those former things into the fresh things. I'm calling you out of those things that you knew into the new things. Here's your window. Make up your mind. You hear what I'm saying? Here's your window. Make up your mind. And so some of us are going to have to make a decision by morning.
Wow.
Oh, see, that's the prophetic word we don't like. You want me to give you some, y'all don't do that anyway. What if the prophetic word, no. The prophetic word is, thank you, Holy Ghost. The prophetic word is, make up your mind by morning. Because watch this. God asks you to make decisions. He doesn't make decisions for you. Make up your mind by morning. Which one is going to be? What you knew or the new thing? What you knew. I know it's a struggle. I know you've done this for you're going to do what you knew or you're going to do the new thing? Which one? Which one? So we just thank God for this. Again, this just is invigorating for me personally. And this fresh thing, I didn't know, again, we had planned on a fifth Sabbath forum, not knowing that I would just need the kind of mental break to be able to keep going. That makes sense? To keep going and doing, it's not putting on the front, is that, okay, you have to keep going. There's no getting over losing someone like that, but we must get on with it. That makes sense? We must. Or truth be told, we're doing a disservice to God and we're doing a disservice to them, because if they were here, they would tell you, get on with it. Get on with it. Does that make sense? And so I'm just glad that God has had us sit in purpose. And honestly, it's the only place I want to be. I'm not talking about this setup. I'm talking about sitting in purpose and doing what God calls for us to do whenever he calls for us to do it. Because I didn't know where this would go. I don't know where it's going. Doesn't really matter as long as he's saying keep going. That makes sense? So where's all of this going? I don't know. Did Abraham know exactly where God was going to call it? He didn't know. Didn't know. So this whole idea of knowing exactly where, we just have to start going towards where. And so God is saying, I'm shifting you, we'll start shifting. If God is saying, hey, I'm bringing you into this new thing, we'll start moving towards the new thing. And we got a window, because God is gracious, very gracious. He's merciful. But he wants what he wants. It makes sense? And if we love him like we say we do, we'll give him what he wants. It makes sense? So I don't know what's going to happen next week. Something going to happen. Should the Lord say the same? But I can promise you this. As long as I got my mind right, we're going to be in purpose. Amen. And we're going to do what God is asking us to do. And it's not about excitability. It's not about entertainment. It's about edification. It's not about enabling errant practices. It's about getting us to a place where we're catching our own fish.
That's good.
It's getting us to a place where we're catching our own fish. But we're always looking for what the master wants to do with the fish. What he wants to do with the men. You understand? Because you don't keep all the fish you catch.
You can't eat it all. Too much.
So watch this. We're not going to keep all the people we catch. Hello, church. I just really said something.
Heavy.
We're not going to keep all, but our job is to catch. Watch this. But not release. Because some catch and then release. When you catch and release, you put them back in the same environment they came out of. We don't do this for sport.
That's good.
When we catch, we're supposed to bring them out of that environment into a new environment to be used differently than they were before. Because, watch this, if fishers become fishermen, what do fishes become? Fishers. If fishers become fishermen, what becomes of the fish? They've got to become fishermen. That makes sense. There's supposed to be a progression. And we got to make sure that we're not getting in our own way. And we got to make sure that we're not getting in somebody else's way. Y'all ready to give? Give God another hand clap of praise, because that was... And I hope, and I believe, but I hope that we're not just hearing this and saying this is good, or I'm getting something from this. I hope we're going somewhere with this. That this changes the way that we operate, and we just start looking for what God wants us to do and doing it. That makes sense?
Application.
Application, absolutely. Right. So no more posing. Just posture.
So I just want to say thank y'all, New Heights. Like, I really appreciate y'all. Pastor, I appreciate you for just letting me sit in moments of purpose and prophecy. I get, these last 2 weeks, I've gotten so much confirmation. I literally have on my screen right now notes on shift. Because that's what I talked about last Sunday. God tells Elijah to leave. He tells him to go to a brook. He tells him, I'm going to send the raven, something that's not supposed to feed you. To feed you.
I saw that.
I want you to go there. And the brook only dries up because of Elijah. Because he was the one that prophesied there'll be no rain. He said there won't be no rain, so there was no rain. So where God sent them, dried up. Then God tells him to shift again and go to Zarephath. And I'm going to have a widow woman take care of you. So when you kept saying shift today, I'm like, why does he keep saying that? Please stop saying that. But I knew while you were saying that it was speaking to me. And so just thank you for being the obedient vessel that you are, because it takes a certain caliber of pastor and person to do what you're doing. And to be obedient to this level
is a totally different level of obedience. And I'm not saying it to gas your head up. You know we're going to talk during the week. But I'm telling you, for you to be a younger, tenured pastor, your stance and your obedience is to be commended. It's not a game. How many years you been pastoring now? It'll be 10. So I need y'all to pull your calculator out real quick. You got a phone? Pull your calculator out. I want you to understand what he's doing right now. Anybody have a calculator on their phone? We're getting out of here. Do 1,800 times 12. What'd you get? Multiply that times 10. 216,000. So in the 10 years he's been pastoring, 216,000 pastors have quit. That's what we know on record. And 216,000 pastors have not gone through what he's gone through. I don't want y'all to take this gift lightly. These are facts. You can look it up. The numbers keep going up every month of pastors quitting and not doing. When I say quitting, they quit and have nothing to do with ministry no more. Nothing. Not doing what we doing, not evangelizing. They're doing nothing because of what it takes to sit in this seat. Please do not take him for granted. I don't care if you know him. I don't care. He was your nephew, your friend, your cousin, your sibling, your uncle, whoever he is to you. Do not take this gift for granted. I left New Jersey by the unction of the Holy Spirit 11 years ago. I still have people from my church in New Jersey that have not found a church home yet. Because now they realize how valuable I was. Don't take this man and his wife for granted. He ain't paying me to say that. I'm just telling you. He don't even like me talking like that. Just like really take care of him, please. It's rough being a pastor and people don't understand your heart. It's rough. So make sure y'all look out for him. Well, I'm coming back, but I ain't coming back with J's on. I'm coming back with Timberlands on. That's a whole nother side of Pastor Simpson when he got his Timberlands on. Please just take care of him. I love this dude. I'm saying it openly in front of y'all. Like,
Lay you back.
These last 2 weeks have been literally amazing for me. I was with my pastor yesterday. My pastor is Pastor John Hanna. He was here because he had to do something for Bishop Jakes' leadership summit. So I was there serving him. And this morning he was getting ready to fly out. I said, Pastor, I'm coming to serve you. I'm coming to help you pack. I'm coming to help you get ready. But I have an assignment that I have to be to. So I'm going to make sure you're in good hands. But then I have to go. I'm not doing that for everyone. Period. I'm doing that for him. So I need y'all to make sure that y'all take care of my brother.
See, that's one of those teaching while teaching moments. Because he left a place where he could have been seen. Okay. I don't know if they know who Pastor John Hanna is, but look, open your mind up and do some research. You understand that this is what we call a general of the faith. And they're at a conference of T.D. Jakes, and most of us know his magnitude. So
Everyone was there.
right. So he could have been somewhere he was seen. Anyway, y'all give a hand clap for